Good evening and welcome. And this is the first IXP Manager video in quite some time. What we're looking at here today, this evening, is how to upgrade IXP Manager from the last version, which was version 6.3 to 6.4. The procedure is normal, but because we're going to be doing some stuff at root servers, I appreciate a lot of people will have maybe some trepidation about the upgrade process. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a live exchange. We're going to use NCLIX, which is the Newcastle Internet Exchange in the northeast of England. They have a nice small exchange there in Stellium data centers running IXP Manager. And you can see down here that they're running the latest version prior to the one that we've just released, and literally just released it 13 minutes ago. So we're going to update that, and we're going to update that doing the root server resilience, the new features that we've added. So just scanning the release notes. So the new version is 6.4, and the highlights here are resilience and UI-based community filtering when it comes to root servers. The resiliency piece is all around changing the script that does the root server updates on the servers, and around how we're going to start pairing routers. So we're going to pair, and we'll see this when we go through this demonstration. Typically, an iExchange will have two root servers, so RS1 for IPv4 and RS2 for IPv4. And the idea is that at least one of those would always be running, and that provides your redundancy and your resiliency. What we're going to do with this new feature is we're going to pair them so that with the new update scripts, you can only ever update one of these at a time. And if one of them ever fails, the other one won't update until you manually intervene and correct the issue. And that's the new scripts and how they work. And we'll go through maybe some of that when we get to it. The second thing is about a new UI-based community filtering system. And we'll also look at that when we do the upgrade and how that works. Otherwise, we've with Laszlo, who's the new developer with the project, he's done a huge amount of work with the front end unit testing, which is great. And then we've got a bunch of other smaller improvements, fixes, and security. All of these are fairly minor, and you can read through those again in your own time. So the main thing with upgrading is that we have the standard official upgrade instructions, and we're going to follow these, including the database migrations. So I have that page open here, and I am signed in to my IXP Manager web server. Now, what I'm going to do, just as a safety net. Now, this isn't necessary, and it's not in the upgrade instructions. I might add them in afterwards, but it's not actually necessary, as we should see as we go through this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the routers, or the root collector and the root server, from actually updating its config while I'm doing the update process. Once you're in maintenance mode, it won't do it anyway. But once I go out of maintenance mode, I want to be absolutely sure that I control the root servers and how they actually update. So what we're going to do is we're just going to comment out this guy here. So no more updates for you. And then on root server 1, that's going to be in crontab /nclix. So this is the reconfigure for IPv4 and the reconfigure for IPv6. That's just root refreshes. They're not actually needed anymore. We can remove those in a while. Okay, and then lastly, on the second root server, comment these guys out as well. So the only one I didn't stop was the quarantine root collector, which doesn't matter. If we were to look at the looking glass for the quarantine root collector, we're going to see no real stuff going on there. Let's see. So there's a new member waiting to connect up, but they're not even connected to the quarantine root collector. So it's absolutely fine to proceed there. So as I said, we're going to follow the standard update instructions, which comes from here. So in the below, we assume the following installation directory altered is to suit your own situation. Our install here follows the standard. So my IX root is serve/IXP Manager. In terms of backups, we would expect that most IXs have a nightly backup for the servers at a minimum. We do in this case, so I'm not going to worry about backups. It's already a process that's taken care of automatically. Now, set up some variables and ensure directory permissions are okay. So I've done this. This is correct for this server. I'm running a Ubuntu server here, so it is www.data. And I can run this no problem. That's absolutely fine. It just fixes permissions. There weren't any permission problems, but it's just belt and braces stuff. Now, maintenance mode. I'm going to essentially disable IXP Manager. So the message, that means I'm running a version of IXP Manager that doesn't have that, but down in its own works absolutely fine. And if I come back here now, sorry, to the portal, so service unavailable because we're updating at the moment. Okay, so back to the instructions. Using Git, check out the next minor/latest patch version up from yours. Now, just to confirm, Git status. There's no changes. This is just the maintenance stuff because I put into maintenance mode, it's created these two files. That's fine altogether. We're going to ignore those. Cat version. So I'm running 6.3.1 as I stated earlier on. And what branch am I in? Git branch. I'm in the release v6 branch. Okay. So cd IXP root, that's fine. I'm going to fetch everything. That's fine as well. Now, what it's telling me to do here is to git checkout v6, in my case 6.4.0. I'm not going to do that because what I do as a slightly more advanced user is I stay in the release v6 branch. And what we promise generally between releases is that if you update for a bug fix release, so maybe 6.3.1 to 6.3.2, you can always safely do a git pull in the release v6 branch. It's only when we go to a minor one like 6.3 to 6.4 that you actually need to go through the upgrade instructions and do some maybe database migrations. So I'm just going to do, rather than doing a git checkout v6.4.0, I'm just going to do a git pull. I'm just going to update my current working branch. I'm still in release v6, but now I've got all the new code for 6.4.0. And again, if I do a cat version, you're going to see that here, 6.4.0. Now, install the latest required libraries from Composer, and that's absolutely fine. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to take this bit here. So Composer install, no dev means no development libraries, and preferred dist means only install what the package needs and not maybe documentation and stuff like that. So I'm happy to continue running as root. So we're updating 85 packages here, and particularly of interest is the Laravel framework is going to be updated. If I can spot it in my scans here. Laravel stuff there. I'm not spotting Laravel serializable. I'm looking for Laravel framework. It's in there somewhere, but essentially what we're doing is we're moving from version 8 to version 9. Let that run away. Okay. So a couple of warnings there. That's fine. Let me just see what version of PHP we're running. Yeah, we're running PHP 8.1. That's fine. That's probably why we're getting some of these deprecated warnings. IXP Manager version 6.x is targeted at PHP version 8.0, but 8.1 is perfectly compatible. So I'm just going to run that again just to see that everything ran and that there's no issue. Okay, that all looks fine. I'm just taking one last look at everything here. Okay, and all of those errors seem to relate to vendor packages. So I'm not going to worry about those at all. And as I say, if you're running PHP 8.0, you're probably not even going to see those. Okay. So restart memcache, that's fine. We can restart memcache. We can clear the local cache, no problem. That's going to be slightly annoying while we do this, and I apologize. I think we're just going to ignore it for now. Let me pause for 1 second and I'll just see if I can disable those warnings. Okay, I can't turn it off, but I have confirmed it's a PHP 8.1 thing, and it's absolutely fine. So we're just going to live with it to complete this video. So the database schema is that we need to update next. Again, you should really take a MySQL dump your database first. Just to confirm on this system, we take a nightly backup. Then they're shipped off site, so we have our dump. There's no problem there. Let's see what the status is. So we have 4 migrations to run. We have migrations to create the root server filters for ORS pairing, a little addition to registration details, and a new flag in VLANs. That's fine. We're going to go ahead and run that migration. Yes, I do want to really do it. And they have all done. Perfect. Ensure the notes version specific changes required in the release notes. They are not. Ensure file permissions are still correct. I'm going to run this because I've been operating as root here. Perfect. I'm going to clear all of the caches. Yeah, there's all those errors again. That's fine. I'm going to ignore all of those. And disable maintenance mode. Okay. So back to my portal. Here I am. I'm up and running. And I am now on version 6.4.0. That's brilliant. So now that it's done, now that I'm updated, that's the easy bit, right? That's the bit we do all the time. It's a normal piece. Now is the new bits with the root servers. So edit your router definitions, IXP Manager, to set up router pairs. So let's have a look at that here. Under routers, I have 2 root collectors, IPv4 and IPv6. I have 2 quarantine root collectors for onboarding new members. And then I've got 2 pairs of root servers. I've got ORS1 for IPv4, ORS2 for IPv4, ORS1 for IPv6, and ORS2 for IPv6. So what we want to do is we want to pair ORS1 IPv4 and ORS2 IPv4 because these are the 2 IPv4 root servers for this exchange, and at least one of these needs to be running all of the time. So if I pop in and edit this router, so ORS1 LAN 1 IPv4, we have a new option here somewhere, pair with, right up the top. So I want to pair that with ORS2 LAN 1 IPv4. So I'm going to save that change. We can see that pairing is now set here. And I want to do the opposite on its mate, on its partner. So I'm going to edit that router. I'm going to pair ORS2 LAN 1 IPv4 with ORS1 LAN 1 IPv4. So the inverse is also true. So there we go, they offset. Now you might ask, what about where you only have one? What I would do with the root collectors here is I would pair it with its IPv6 partner. So RC1 IPv4, RC1 IPv6 are paired. So at least, at the very least, even though root collectors are not mission critical, they're more of an administration and a management and a monitoring system. You may as well try and ensure that at least one of them is always running v4 or v6. So then I'm going to pair that with the IPv4 version. So that's my pairing. I'm just going to pause this for a second while I just fill out the rest. Okay, so you can see I finished off those. I paired the quarantine root collector v4 and v6 with each other, and then I paired the IPv6 version of ORS1 and ORS2 with each other. So that's all the pairings now done. So the next piece here is it says replace your root server and root collector update scripts with the new scripts linked below. Now before that, I'm just going to go to the quarantine root collector, and I'm just going to run the standard script. And I'm just going to pop back here, and I'm going to refresh my routers. So 5 seconds, 4 seconds ago. So I've only done that to show you that you can upgrade to 6.4 and not do anything with your root servers. They'll still work absolutely fine. You don't need to change your scripts straight away. There's no issue and there's no worry. You can work away on that. That's fine. So, but what we're going to do is we are going to update these scripts. So this is a root collector. It's a quarantine root collector, but it's a root collector. So what I want to do is get the root collector script. So if I scroll down here to the documentation, once your pairs are set up, you need to deploy the new router update scripts as followed. So for root collectors, we're going to use this script. Now, just to refresh what this does. This new script, so the first thing it does is it tries to obtain a local script lock. So we didn't have this before. What it means is you can only, on the server, you can only run one instance of this update script. So they can't trip over each other. And this is all about increasing resilience. And it's also about increasing the cadence with which we do the root server updates so that we can update them more frequently for the new UI stuff we'll see in a minute. So that obtains a local script lock. The next thing we do, which is also new, is we try and obtain a configuration lock from IXP Manager. And that's an API call. And IXP Manager will take a global write lock on the routers table. And what it will do is it'll say, right, has this router been paused? And paused means, if I drop this down, pause updates. That means that this will no longer update while it's paused. Okay, so if it's been paused, you can't get a lock. It's going to come back and say no. In fact, I'm going to leave that paused for now. We'll have a look at it in a minute. The next thing it does is it checks to see if a script already has a lock for the router. Now, with the local script lock, that shouldn't be possible. But it may be a case that for some reason the update script aborted out between getting the lock and releasing the lock, and you're trying to diagnose the problems, and you may be running it in a case where it's still locked in the database. And we'll talk about how you resolve that in a moment. But if there's a lock on it, on the IXP Manager database, it also won't give a lock and the script will not update this router. Lastly, it checks to see if the router's partner is locked. And again, if the router's partner is locked, it won't allow an update on this. So it'll have to wait until the next cron job runs. Now, if the lock is acquired, the script will then download the latest configuration from IXP Manager. The script will do some basic sanity checks, so it makes sure the HTTP request to pull the configuration succeeded. It'll make sure that the new file exists and is non-zero in size. It'll ensure there's at least 2 BGP protocol definitions in the configuration file. Now that doesn't actually apply to the root collector scripts because the quarantine collector often might have 0 or 1, for example. And lastly, the script has bird parse the new downloaded config to see if it checks out. So a lot of that isn't new. A lot of that's always been there. Now, what's new is the update script will now compare the newly downloaded script to the running configuration after stripping out whitespace and comments, for example. Now, if there's no differences, that means bird doesn't need to be reconfigured. And this is new. So only if there's a change in the configuration, and we've made some changes in IXP Manager to make this deterministic. So we order IP prefixes and we order AS numbers and stuff so that they don't come randomly from the database. They all come in ordered state. So that at least as say IORDB prefixes update in the database, that won't change the configuration if there's no changes to the IORDB. They'll all come out ordered. If there are differences, the old configuration is backed up and the bird daemon will be reloaded. A check is also performed to ensure that bird is actually running. Okay, that's obviously important. And if it's not, it's started. And the last thing, once bird has been started and or reconfigured, we will do a call to update it. Now this existed before. That's how we always have had the last updated column here. But what it now does also is it releases the lock that was obtained at the start. And we've made this robust. We're using a bash until retry construct so that if there's any changes in network, or if maybe IXP Manager is put in the maintenance mode between the starting and finishing this, it's going to wait indefinitely sleeping 60 to tell IXP Manager to release that lock. And you should still offset. Okay, we'll come back to that again. Right, so let's now take this script. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the raw version here. I'm going to take this URL. I'm going to go back to my quarantine root collector. I'm going to get that file. Now, when I look at that file, oh, sorry, it's this one here. What I can see is, unlike previously where you had to change a lot of things, now we only have to do 4 things. And in fact, it's only 3 because on Ubuntu, bird exists there anyway, so that's fine. So we need the handles that we're going to update in the script. We need an API key, and we need the URL root. So I'm just going to go into a new screen section here on this. I'm going to go to the older script. Now, I know you're going to see the API key here, right? The first thing I'm going to do before I post this video is I'm going to reset these API keys afterwards. So don't worry about that. So the API key I'm going to take is this one here, which again, I am going to reset. So I'm going to paste that in there. Now the handles are going to be here. So these are the 2 handles, the 2 root collector. And of course, these come straight out of this column here, these handles, okay? So the handles that I'm going to update are these guys here. And then my URL root is just this piece here. So no /. So that's it. That's all I have to change. Save that file name, make it executable. I can run it. So the lock is unavailable for RCQ1 IPv4. That is exactly as expected because we had it paused, okay? We have it paused. So I'm going to resume updates for that. And I'm going to rerun this script. And now you can see I got my lock, downloaded the configuration, the config is unchanged, so no bird reconfig required. And I've told IXP Manager that I'm finished, okay? Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to edit a config file just to show you, just to force a change. So I'm just going to take out one of these prefixes here from Martians. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to run this again. So this time I have a configuration change, and bird was reconfigured. There might be some CRUD in here now, but we'll see. Perfect. So now you can see I have the old config as well. Just if that and etc bird IPv4.old. And besides the comments which are stripped out, you can see there's a change I made. So that's it working absolutely fine. Now I do want to show you what happens if this script crashes out and it doesn't tell IXP Manager that it's finished. Okay, so let's just say right down the bottom of this script where we tell IXP Manager that the router has been updated. Let's say we exit out before that point. Okay, I'm going to run this. Right, we exit out exactly where I said we would, and because we exited rather than continued, we didn't go on to do the IPv6 version. Now, what I want to show you over here is, this is what it looks like in IXP Manager. IXP Manager gave a lock, right? So it gave the lock. but it hasn't been told that it's finished. So this has been updating for 31 seconds at this point, right? Now it could take that long. Maybe it's a huge router. Maybe there's a massive configuration file. This might be absolutely perfectly normal. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to undo that change. I'm going to run this again just to show you the next bit. Okay, what's happening here? Well, what's happening on the first one is that lock is unavailable because there's already a process that is trying to configure it, as far as IXP Manager is concerned. Now, the reason the second one is unavailable is because the IPv6 version is its pair, and while a partner is being updated, the other one cannot be updated. Okay, so that's what's happening here. Now, you might find yourself in a situation where something went wrong with the scripts, maybe a network problem or something else, and you're happy everything's okay, and you want to just fix it manually, so you want to reset this. So all you do is you go down here and you reset the update timestamps. Essentially, you clear the lock. So I don't know when it was last updated. That's been cleared. Can I go ahead and do this? And everything runs exactly as expected, and they've both been updated. Okay, so that is that configuration working absolutely fine. So what I'm going to do, as well as changing the API key later, is I'm going to replace the script I did have with my new one. So I'm going to move my new one over my old one. I'm going to go into my cron tab. I'm going to, oh, I never turned it off in this one. That's fine. So I have nothing else to do here. Okay, so that's my quarantine root collector. And just for belt and braces, we can pop into the looking glass. IPv4 quarantine root collector up and running, no problems there. And I can now go back to the IPv6 version of it. Everything's fine there. So that's the root collector. Now we're going to look at the root server. So I'm going to just close down this connection altogether. I'm going to move over to root server 2. So updates were disabled. That's fine. I'm going to turn these back on again just to show you again that this was purely belt and braces. There was no need to actually do this at all. So NCLX reconfigure all. Okay and okay. Right. So the script's a little bit different. You don't get the same level of output on the root servers as you do with the root collector. But we can look at our looking glass again, and we can look at root server 2. We can see everything is up and running as expected. A few hundred prefixes. Everything's fine. So what we want to do now is we want to take the update script for root servers. Right, so that's this one here. So again, I'm going to go to the raw version of it. I'm going to download this into my SBIN. I'm going to open a second screen here again, just to make things a little bit easy for myself. cd/user SBIN. I'm just going to look at the old one here where I've got the API key, etc. And edit the one I just downloaded. So again, just 3 things to change here. This one doesn't take handles in the config. You pass it the handle as part of the command line. So take, what was I looking for there? Sorry, API key. And URL root. I'm just going to take that from here. I'll look at 1 or 2 things here, sorry, just before I finish up. Yeah, okay. Okay, there we go. So I'm on root server 2. So what I should do here is chmod a+x API reconfigure example. Sorry, help on this. Oh, that's the handle, sorry. Okay, so the handle is -h ors2 lan1 IPv6. That worked. No output on that by default. Let's see, sorry, I'm looking for this one, and I'm looking for my routers. RS2 LAN 1 updated 10 seconds ago. Okay, perfect. Now you can pass it a debug flag and it'll show you what it's doing. Now it's saying bird running and no reload required, so skipping configure. So that's the same as the other one where if there's no config change, it's not going to do anything. Now I just want to show you one other thing here before I replace the older script. If you look at the older script, so the one I had on the server beforehand, I had this little belt and braces check. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to copy it over to the new script after the handle is set. So look, handle is required. Okay, perfect. So after we've got the handle, what I want to do is I want to say if the handle starts with RS1, I want to just get out of here. Wow, are you serious? You cannot put a root server 2 config on root server 1. Check yourself. So essentially, if I were to try and do, by mistake, maybe it's late at night and I'm doing maintenance, I forget that I'm on root server 2 and I try to give it a root server 1 config, which would be really bad, it tells me no, can't do that. So that's just the belt and braces there. So now that everything is working, I'm going to do the same thing as last time. I'm going to move my API reconfigure bird over the old one that was there. And now I can do a reconfigure all. And it's all done. And now I can go and re-enable the belt and braces pieces before where, sorry, I already did that with you. That's fine. So that's root server 2 updated. And what we're going to go on to next, I'm going to do, in fact, I'm going to pause this and just finish off root collector and root server 1. So I'll be back to you in 1 second. Okay, thanks for waiting there. Right, so I have gone ahead and I have finished off root server 1 and the root collector in the exact same way I did the quarantine and root server 2. I also went ahead and created myself some new API keys, which I think are still in the background, so I'm just going to get rid of those ones. Okay, sorry about that. API keys all sorted. Right. So heading back to our release notes, we have replaced our root server and root collector update scripts with the new scripts linked below. And now what we want to do is we want to update the cadence of the root server update scripts and enable the root server filtering UI. So let's look at the root server filtering UI. And we need to enable it, and that's what this here is for. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to go to my IXP Manager, edit my env file. I'm just going to pause this actually because there's going to be some secret data in here. Sorry, 1 sec. So I'm in my env file and I'm literally just going to paste in that line. So I'm going to set RS filters as enabled by saying that that false for disabled. So a little bit backwards, but it works. So I go back to my NCLX portal, and if I now go to routers, you can see I've got this new option here. So customers with filters. There are none, of course, because we haven't created any yet. So I want to show you what this looks like. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and go to the, do I not have an AS112 here? Okay. I'm going to go to Stellium Networks and I'm going to, I'm already logged in as this user, so I'm just going to swap my user account to Stellium Networks. And on this, I am going to go to peering and root server filtering. And here is my new root server filtering. I have no filters in production, which is exactly as expected. No root server filters have been defined, so I'm going to create one here. And what I can do here is I can say all peers, or I can pull out a very specific peer. So I'm going to pull out, who am I going to pull out for the crack? I'm going to pull out Zeo. And for IPv6, I'm not going to do this to a specific prefix, I'm going to do this for all prefixes, and I'm going to prepend my AS one time, and I'm going to prepend the peers AS one time. Okay, I'm going to create this filter. So your filters are not in sync with our production configuration, so you can continue editing, or I can revert, which means delete my staged rules, or I can commit, which means push them into production. Let's just commit them for a second. So that's them in production. Now I can delete this rule. And again, I have staged rules, nothing. Rules in production is as it was. So I'm going to commit my staged rules, and I now have no filters in production. Okay. So that's the very basics of the new UI based community tagging. And rather than repeat everything that's here, I'm just going to suggest you read this, which is the full explanation and the justification for having it. So I'm going to go back to my main account here. Perfect. And now that I've turned on the filtering, it's available to all the members. But what needs to happen now is the members need to know that if they actually do make changes, that it goes into production fairly quickly. And the current cadence that we have with the root servers on.d CLIX is just 4 times a day, right? So that's really, really slow. So I'm going to change that drastically. And for root server 1, for root server 1, for IPv4, I'm going to make that happen every 10 minutes of every hour of every day. And for root server 2, I beg your pardon, for root server 1, but for IPv6, I'm going to just offset that by 2 minutes. So every 10 minutes on the second minute, it's going to do that update. And I need to get rid of these. So now that's my cadence here, hugely sped up. Now again, remember, you're only going to actually reconfigure Bird if there has been a configuration change. Okay, so that's root server 1. And on root server 2, I want to just offset them slightly. So cron.d and CLIX. So on this case, I'm going to go every 10 minutes on the 5th minute of every hour. And on this side, I'm going to just offset that with 7, 17, 27 of every hour. Okay, that looks good too. So we are essentially done. The community filtering via UI is enabled. We've increased the cadence to every 10 minutes, which means that our members will know that within 10 minutes of changes, they'll see them go live. Now I'm just going to pause for 1 second. Okay, I paused there just to see because I remembered when I was developing this, which was a while ago now, that I did consider a way to let the members know or give them an idea of how quickly these changes would take effect. So if we go back to the customer, back to our root server filtering, there's this introduction, there's this sort of introductory / instruction text. So we can actually skin that, and that's what we're going to do. So in resources views RS filter, there is a file called introduction.foil.php. So I'm going to make dir -p resources skins. I have NCLIX here, perfect, and RS filter. Then I'm going to CP the introduction to there. Then I'm going to edit that. I'm going to add in, please note the following important points, and my new point will be all changes made will be synced to production within 10 minutes. So 10 is it's every 10 minutes. So 10 is the longest wait. So within 10 minutes. So there we go, right? So that you can do that in line with whatever cadence you choose. Front-end unit testing. So that's it, folks. That is our upgrade fully done, and all of the update instructions completely followed. So I hope this was useful. I hope it gives you the confidence to make these changes and put the resiliency into effect and put the UI changes live. And best of luck. If you need any help, always remember the mailing list is the place to go. So IXPmanager.org. You're going to want to go to community. Sorry, I beg your pardon, to support, mailing lists. You're going to sign up to the user's mailing list via subscribe, and then you can ask your questions. All right. Thank you very much. Have a good evening, and good luck with your upgrade.